Revealed 4 surprising carbs to avoid after 60 and 4 incredible options to transform your health. The article's headline blared at Grace Thompson from her tablet screen, bright and jarring against the soft, warm light of her cozy living room. She exhaled slowly, her pulse quickening as she read on. It was a cocktail of guilt and curiosity. How had her health slipped so quickly from her grasp? The notion of carbs suffocating her vitality lingered like a specter, shadowing her thoughts about the cookies and pasta she had once savored and now mourned. She felt the weight of invisible restrictions pressing down on her, suffocating her joyful memories of shared meals, even as her body's demands wrapped around her like barbed wire. Concerned glances from friends had morphed into worried conversations with her children. They weren't just coming home for a weekend visit. In their silence, she felt the tidal wave of their judgment waiting to crash over her. "I'm tired," she'd say, wishing they could understand that while the weight had settled onto her hips, it also clung to her heart, heavy and burdensome. She could feel her resolve weakening, sliding through her fingers like sand. They had found their mother's struggle too hard to digest, and just trying to find a balance felt like wrestling a bear. How was it that the world viewed her, once an inspiring teacher filled with vigor, now saw her distorted through a lens magnified by concern? Her heart raced as the doorbell chimed, loud and definitive. Dinner began with laughter and warmth wrapping around their small dining table, but the atmosphere shifted beneath the surface. Grace noticed the strained glances her children exchanged, their eyes loaded with unease. When they finally confronted her about her weight, their worry bloomed into accusations, tempting treats masked as love. Every bite she had taken crept beneath the surface, bubbling up into the conversation, choking her with regret and defensiveness. "Have you thought about what you're eating?" David asked, voice taut with concern. "I just want you to be healthy, Mom." And his words stung. For years she had shaped young minds. Now her own children were wondering how she could possibly have slipped. Yet inside, a swirling conflict brewed, mingling indignation and despair. Did they think she was incapable? Old? With every biting question, their well-meaning worry further tightened the chokehold on her heart, leaving her gasping for air, wondering whether autonomy would always play second fiddle to duty. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference.
Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the scent of sautéing garlic and onions filled the kitchen, a soft smile ghosted across her face. This wasn't just cooking, it was an awakening. Her idea of self-care was taking form right before her eyes. But deep beneath that smile, doubts slithered in. Was this really enough? Could a simple change in her cooking truly shift the way her family saw her? The evening came, and just like before, they gathered around the dining table. This time, however, an air of uncertainty buzzed beneath the warmth. As Grace served her creation, a vibrant dish of stir-fried vegetables and quinoa, she inhaled deeply, scanning her family's faces. They accepted the plate with tentative interest, but their apprehension was palpable. What would they think of this new approach? Would they see it as just another phase, or a genuine attempt to transform? "Wow, Mom," Lisa finally said, her fork poised with a mix of surprise and wariness. "This looks different." Different. That word echoed in Grace's mind. It made her ponder. Was she simply putting on a facade, or did she genuinely want to evolve? As they all took a bite, Grace held her breath, waiting for the verdict. The flavors melded together beautifully, a stark contrast against the darker chirps of her mind criticizing her worthiness. The first few bites echoed with silence, tension holding every moment captive. She had invested so much in this step. Could it begin to alter more than just a meal? "Delicious," David finally exclaimed, breaking the spell. Relief washed over her like a warm breeze. Conversations about health and self-worth faded as genuine laughter filled the air. But in the back of her mind, her conscience didn't rest easy. It doesn't end here, she thought. The night had been a good start, but she was painfully aware this was merely the first step along a long road toward truly transforming her health and herself. That night, as she lay in bed, exhausted but hopeful, a thought struck her. What if she shared her journey, openly discussing not just the triumphs but the darker shadows of her struggle? The thought ignited something inside her. This could not only be a quest for her transformation, but also a guide for others facing similar battles. But the next morning would dawn with its own set of challenges. Could she be vulnerable enough to share her story with the world? As those questions lingered, Grace felt the coils of doubt tightening again, compelling her to take action, even at the risk of failure. The moment of truth approached. Should she embrace the vulnerability of sharing her journey, or retreat into the safety of silence, fearing judgment once again? Grace woke to the soft light of dawn spilling through the curtains, illuminating the kitchen remnants from last night's victory. The laughter still echoed in her mind, a reminder of the connection she had built through a simple meal.
Yet a new battle began as she sat at the breakfast table, pondering whether to reveal her plans for her personal transformation. The thought of sharing her journey lay heavy in her stomach, competing with the remnants of anxiety. As she sipped her coffee, Grace considered the path that had brought her here. The urge to inspire was undeniable, fueled by her desire for her family to see her efforts as real and impactful. Yet, exposing her vulnerabilities felt akin to undressing in public. Could she find the courage to chronicle her struggles alongside her triumphs? The very thought made her stomach twist. She turned to her laptop, the screen humming softly to life. A cacophony of thoughts clamored in her head. What would she say? How much would she reveal? Fingers hovering over the keys, she hesitated. It felt monumental to confront her own uncertainty and acknowledge the parts of herself she'd kept hidden for so long. But a flicker of resolve sparked within her. If she wanted her family to see the authenticity of her journey, she needed to articulate that experience. Grace began typing, her words flowing in fits and starts, initially clumsy as she wrestled with the language of her heart. Each sentence emerged with hesitancy, yet incrementally transformed into a narrative of struggle illuminated by determination. Stories of missed goals and misguided habits mingled with her burgeoning sense of agency. The act of articulating her past struggles and aspirations became therapeutic, an expression of battle rather than defeat. With each keystroke, she reminded herself that vulnerability was not a weakness, it could be a strength. She recalled a phrase that had struck her during her reflections, something about being brave enough to air one's imperfections in pursuit of health and happiness. It dawned on her, real transformation transcended the personal. It also invited others to embark upon their paths too. If they could understand her challenges, maybe they could find the courage to confront their own. The morning snuck into her day, and she found herself lost in the rhythm of words. Grace noticed something stirring in her. All these years of self-doubt had masked a powerful resilience within her. The more she disclosed in her writing, the more she uncovered pieces of herself she had buried under layers of fear and shame. Clarity surged forward with each paragraph, coaxing her toward the understanding of her inherent worth.
Hours later, her article began to take shape, evolving into both an introspective memoir and a practical guide. Grace felt not only lighter but also exhilaratingly alive, as if she were finally shedding the weight of anonymity. She drafted sections on nutrition, her newfound love for vegetables and the healthy recipes she'd been testing out, highlighting her adventures in the kitchen. The idea of helping others navigate similar struggles fueled her resolve further.
Yet, just as hope blossomed, a creeping doubt persisted. Who would care about her journey? What if she was met with judgment instead of understanding? The fear of potential criticism felt suffocating. She could already envision the scrolling comments, could see others questioning her authenticity or dismissing her battle as trivial. As she wrestled with these thoughts, a shift occurred. The ghosts of her doubts transformed into potential motivators. Rather than view herself as merely a subject to critique, she envisioned herself as a beacon of hope for anyone stagnating in their journey of self-improvement. With renewed purpose, Grace crafted her closing thoughts. This is not merely my story, it's for anyone who seeks change. The words reverberated within her, shaking off the last remnants of her hesitation. She was doing this, and whatever the outcome, she would embrace it fully. The moment she clicked publish felt as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Thrunning with exhilaration, she felt a wave of catharsis wash over her. But as relief coursed through, a flutter of anxiety struck. What would happen next? Just then, her phone buzzed, signaling the arrival of a notification. Grace's heart raced as she braced herself to see what awaited. Would this act of vulnerability resonate, or would she slip back into the shadows of her insecurities? Grace stared at the screen, the notification glowing insistently in the dim morning light. Her breath caught as she failed to move, paralyzed by anticipation. She envisioned countless people reading her words, some nodding in understanding, others rolling their eyes in skepticism. Would they understand the heart behind the text? Summoning a surge of courage, she clicked on the notification. A confirmation message flashed across the screen. A few likes had already appeared, alongside a brief comment praising her vulnerability. It was small, but it ignited a spark. Perhaps she wasn't entirely alone in this journey. Still, one comment wouldn't quell the storm of anxiety swirling inside her. Recognizing the momentum she had built, Grace took a moment to breathe deeply and reflect. This was just the beginning. A tickling curiosity flared within her about sharing more than just her struggles with food. There was an entire world of exploration waiting to be unearthed. If she could talk about her personal battles, there might be deeper connections to explore. Her relationships, her career, her identity. What was the next chapter in her evolution? With inspired focus, she decided that her journey couldn't stop at one article. The thought churned in her mind. How could she make this a continuous narrative? Each experience could serve a greater purpose, revealing her truth and resilience while allowing her voice to grow stronger. The idea blossomed into the desire for a blog, a regular space where she could unpack her discoveries, failures, and triumphs. Motivated by possibility, she opened a new document, her fingers racing over the keys. The format would be unrestrained, a place for her to document her thoughts without the pressure of judgment. What if she could create a community, not solely for encouragement, but for meaningful dialogues? As she began drafting her second piece, thoughts swirled faster than she could capture them. The importance of vulnerability in the digital age. She wrote the title, unsure of where it might lead. It was no longer just about what she had cooked or the items on her plate. It was about addressing the larger canvas of life's messiness that often went unvoiced. The words began to flow freely, and with each paragraph, Grace uncovered more about her experiences, reflections on navigating familial relationships, carrying the weight of expectations, and questioning her career choices. She wrote about moments of joy wrapped in grief, triumphs shadowed by insecurity. All of these threads interlinked and formed the tapestry of her life, waiting to be shared. Time slipped away as a small thrill ignited within her. This wasn't just a blog. It was chronicling a journey toward authenticity. Each article would resonate with her emerging voice, forcing her to confront her fears, articulate her needs, and find her footing in an evolving narrative. Yet just as her enthusiasm buoyed her spirit, a profound consideration interrupted her thoughts. What if her revelations struck too close to home for certain individuals in her life? Would her family approve of her candor? Sharing such personal pieces might evoke discomfort or lead to unexpected repercussions. A wave of dread washed over her. Was she ready to navigate potential backlash from the very people she aimed to inspire? Would they misunderstand her intent, seeing her journey as selfish rather than a pursuit of healing and understanding?
In that moment, the rhythm of her typing faltered. Grace's heart sank as she contemplated the implications her words might have. Was her pursuit of growth worth the risk of discord? Feeling the weight of her decision, she dropped her fingers from the keyboard, consumed by indecision. In the quiet of her kitchen, surrounded by outlines of articles yet to come, the question washed over her. Was she ready to face the emotional repercussions of being wholly herself? Miles beyond her self-doubt, she knew one thing for certain. The time had come to confront the deep-seated fears that lingered just beneath the surface. But as she sat in the silence, grappling with this fierce mental pull, one undeniable thought emerged. She would need to discuss these fears and decisions with someone who might help her clarify her path. And that someone was her sister, Jenna. How would Jenna react to her transformation? What truths would they uncover together? Grace's heart raced at the thought, internal conflict swirling like a tempest, as she realized an important conversation awaited her.
Grace leaned back in her chair, the screen dimming as her thoughts enveloped her. Jenna had always been a sounding board for her aspirations and fears, but this time felt different. The stakes were higher. She was gearing up to unearth pieces of herself that had long been hidden, perhaps even from her sister. She walked to the window, the soft morning sun warming her face. The outside world buzzed with life, yet her mind remained immersed in an internal tug-of-war. What if Jenna didn't understand? Would revealing her vulnerabilities alienate or forge a deeper connection? Moments spent pondering the uncharted territory of their relationship seemed to stretch endlessly, blurring the line between fortitude and trepidation. As the day unfolded and thoughts of her blog lingered, Grace found small pockets of time to reflect. Resilience bubbled beneath her surface, the slightest ripple of excitement forged through determination. Transforming her anxiety into articulate, nuanced reflections would require commitment, something she had to vocalize to Jenna. She decided the conversation should happen in her favorite cafe, a cozy spot where low chatter mingled with the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. The light-hearted ambiance seemed like a fitting backdrop for the emotionally weighty exchange ahead. That evening, amid steaming mugs and baked pastries, Grace took a brave breath and initiated the conversation. "Jenna, I've started writing again, and, well, it feels different this time. I'm uncovering a lot about myself." The words tumbled out, pulsating with honesty. Jenna looked up, her brow furrowing slightly as concern kissed her features. "What do you mean? What are you uncovering?" "Everything," Grace replied, feeling an unexpected thrill at her own honesty. "It's not just about the food struggles anymore. It's about my past, my relationships, my identity. Everything feels intertwined. I'm writing a blog, and I want it to be raw and real." Jenna set her coffee down, tilting her head. "That sounds intense. Why are you nervous about this?" Grace faltered, anxiety shooting through her veins as she contemplated the truth. "Because being authentic might hurt people I care about. I don't want them to think I'm ungrateful or selfish for wanting to share my journey." Her sister's gaze softened as she absorbed Grace's vulnerability. "You're not selfish. You're sharing your truth, and that can be powerful. It could help others too." Grace shifted uneasily in her seat, navigating complex emotions. Was she prepared for the potential fallout? Could she manage the delicate balance between expressing her truth and preserving her familial bonds? "What if they get offended?" she pressed, churning the idea over and over in her mind, only to find no solid ground. Her voice trembled. "What if they think I'm airing dirty laundry?" "Then you explain your intentions," Jenna encouraged, her tone gently insistent. Being honest about your struggles doesn't diminish their experiences. It could even inspire them to share their own truths. The conversation ignited her thoughts, sparking an internal shift she hadn't anticipated. Jenna's unwavering support planted a seed of clarity within her mind, but it also stemmed a new wave of questions. What exactly was she willing to reveal, and what remained too personal? As the cafe grew crowded, Grace's determination mingled with uncertainty. The sense of civil war within her simmered, revealing an unexpected ambition. She craved authenticity at the potential risk of familial backlash. The challenge now lay ahead. She had to decide whether she could tread this uncharted territory without losing the warmth of familial connections. Exiting the cafe, the chill of the evening air struck her. Grace took a moment to balance her thoughts against the reality of what lay before her. The next day, she would pen her first truly revealing post, a step deeper into her journey of self-discovery. But as she walked home, the familial pulse of dread tinged with excitement filled her. What would she put in her first post? And, more crucially, what emotions would spring from unveiling her personal battles to the world? Determined, she stepped forward into the night, unsure of what awaited her, but certain now that the next chapter would unravel before her in a whirlwind of courage and risk. The morning sun pierced through her bedroom window, casting warm patterns on the floor that danced with every slight movement of the leaves outside. Grace sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop resting on her knees, heart racing as she stared at a blank screen. Today marked an important juncture. The first post of her evolving blog demanded more than mere words. It demanded authenticity. The clock ticked steadily, a constant reminder of the urgency bubbling beneath the surface. Grace inhaled deeply, attempting to steady herself as she recalled Jenna's supportive words. They lingered like a soothing balm against the growing weight of her disclosure. What had once felt daunting now ushered in a tinge of exhilaration, a promise of clarity and purpose that beckoned her. But the screen remained unforgivingly blank. The cursor blinked rhythmically, mocking her internal turbulence. Should she dive into her struggles with food, or should she begin with the childhood memories that often haunted her like shadows? Each option felt like an invitation to bear something sacred, a portal into realms she'd kept closed for too long. A quick glance at her reflection in the nearby mirror caught her off guard. A woman poised yet hesitant, someone curating layers of herself, but still protective of the most vulnerable parts. This moment required courage, not just vulnerability. It demanded an unwavering commitment to tell her truth, no matter how rattled the foundation of her relationships might become as a result.
The first keystroke felt electric. A slight jolt of empowerment coursed through her fingertips. "I spent years battling food in the mirror's reflection," she typed, the words spilling forth like torrents of thought. What transformed for me, however, wasn't just the numbers on the scale, but the crumbling walls of my self-identity. In articulating her battle with food, a struggle that resonated deeply with her sense of self, Grace discovered a broader revelation. It wasn't merely about dietary choices. It was entwined with how she perceived love, acceptance, and judgment. As she poured memories onto the page, she uncovered the dissonance that existed between external validation and internal self-worth. But just as she began to understand her narrative, a creeping doubt infiltrated her resolve, warning about potential judgment from those closest to her. Memories of secretive indulgence, the burden of expectation, and the shrouded sorrow of inadequacies flickered in and out of focus. Every recollection threatened to destabilize her emerging plan, an obstacle to the authenticity she craved. Was she prepared to expose these fractured fragments of herself for the world to see, especially when those she loved most might be among her readers? Grace stopped, fingers hovering above the keyboard, wrestling with the ramifications of her revelations. The stakes felt monumentally higher each time she faced that question. Should she shield herself and others from potential pain, or should she lean into the transformative power of vulnerability that had already started to illuminate her path? The realization struck her. With honesty came power, a liberating force that could spark healing not just for herself, but also for others caught in similar battles. She decided in that split second to embrace the risk of authenticity. Drawn from the depths of her experiences, she wrote, "In the process of facing my demons, I learned that sharing the messy truth isn't just a choice, it's a necessity." With renewed determination, Grace drafted the closing lines, ready to invite whatever consequences flowed from her decision. But as she pressed publish, an exhilarating tremor shot through her, a blend of fear and exhilaration. What awaited her now would be unlike anything she had experienced before. The responses might range from admiration to criticism, but regardless, the threshold she crossed into revelation marked the beginning of her revolution. With her heart pounding, Grace shut her laptop, turning her gaze to the window. The world outside brimmed with possibilities, as undefined and organic as her own journey. Yet a new layer of uncertainty settled in her gut, driven by the inevitable question: what would the response be from those she held dear, and how would it change their perception of her? And so she stood on the precipice of her narrative, uncertain yet fortified, embodying both the courage to face her truth and the weight of the unknown.
Grace's hands trembled as she poured herself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling her kitchen with warmth and comfort. The post was live, and with it came the nervous energy that buzzed in her veins. She glanced at her phone, half expecting a flurry of notifications, yet the screen remained predictably silent. Anxiety gnawed at her. Had she made a mistake? She sank onto the couch, staring into the distance, her mind racing. What if her friends and family disapproved? Would they think less of her? The weight of potential judgment loomed large, transforming her burst of courage into a cloud of self-doubt. Each tick of the clock echoed her fears, a relentless reminder that she had opened a door she could not close. Gathering herself, Grace picked up her journal. The leather cover was worn, filled with scrawled thoughts and aspirations that focused on professional milestones she had yet to achieve. Flipping through the pages, she found entries that recalled her dreams of becoming a voice, a source of motivation and enlightenment to others. Why shouldn't my struggles count? She questioned silently, her own validation becoming a mirror for her resolve. As she transfixed herself on the patterns of her coffee, a bold realization solidified within her. While others' reactions were outside her control, her response to them was wholly hers. This journey of vulnerability was also one of strength. She could shape the narrative around her authenticity from this moment forward. Writing was an act of boldness, and sharing her truth required the same courage she had demonstrated each day to challenge her inner demons. Exhaling sharply, she set her coffee down. The silence in her home became a backdrop for reflection, allowing memories to replay in her mind. Embarrassing moments, the sting of unkind words, the time she felt unseen. Some days it was easier to drown those thoughts in self-doubt than face them head-on. Yet here she was, a beacon forged from those very battles. An idea surged within her. She opened her laptop again, fingers hovering above the keyboard, ready to craft a follow-up post. This time, it wouldn't just be a reiteration of her experience, but an invitation to dialogue, to build something even more transformative. What if I began sharing not only my experiences, but also the lessons learned, the strategies that helped me reclaim my narrative, she thought. The next post could guide others on similar paths, she murmured softly, allowing resolve to settle in amidst the chaos. With newfound clarity, Grace typed, "Healing doesn't follow a linear path. It's full of twists and turns, and I want to share those turns. How can I help you navigate yours?" Writing became cathartic, each word releasing pent-up energy. As sentences flowed, Grace discovered an unexpected power in crafting a message she believed would resonate deeply, not just with readers, but with her own journey of recovery.
She wanted to create a space where vulnerability was celebrated, where others could share their stories without fear or shame. Hours flew by, and just as she prepared to close her laptop once more, a notification pinged. Her heart raced. Had someone responded? She opened her email to find several messages waiting, each a different take on her post. Some were affirmations, while others were searching questions filled with concern and curiosity. Among the emails, though, was one from Jenna. "Grace, your post was beautiful, but remember, the world isn't always kind. Are you ready for what's next?" The question lingered ominously, stirring both gratitude and apprehension within her. Jenna had been her rock, and yet the uncertainty of the world now loomed larger than before. What lay ahead wasn't simply the responses following her post, but a profound leap into the unknown. Grace leaned back, taking a deep breath, excitement intermingled with apprehension. It was clear now that her journey was not just about sharing her truth, but about discovering how best to navigate the complexity of her own evolving identity. With another glance at her stark reflection in the window, she resolved to understand herself more deeply in the coming days. The road ahead promised challenges, yet within those struggles lay the potential for deeper connections and startling revelations. Just then, a sudden realization hit her. Self-discovery wasn't just a journey of personal healing, but a continuous evolution into someone more fully herself. What would happen when she dove deeper? The moment was imminent. It was time to embrace not only her story, but the possible shifts in her relationships as well. The next chapter awaited her, brimming with uncertainty and potential. What would Jenna truly think when Grace revealed her vision for the next stage of her journey? Grace stirred awake the following morning, the weight of Jenna's inquiry still heavy on her mind. She could feel its pressing nature wrapped tightly around her consciousness, urging her to confront the uncertainty that awaited. While the world outside her window basked in the golden hues of early sunlight, her own perspective felt muted, shrouded by unresolved questions and emotional turmoil. With a restless flutter of her heart, she padded towards the kitchen. Each step was a reminder of the stakes inherent in her new direction, a path where vulnerability could mean both exposure and connection. She brewed another cup of coffee, hoping the familiar ritual would ground her scattered thoughts. As she waited, she reflected on the nature of her forthcoming decisions. What might she discover about herself in this venture? How could she merge her personal healing with her emerging voice? While sipping her coffee, Grace pulled out her journal once more, the pages inviting her to map out her intentions. What did she want to accomplish with her posts? Who did she envision reaching?
As she wrote, she acknowledged the fear sterner than any she had faced before. Fear of rejection after pouring her heart into shared experiences. "Just like the world isn't always kind," she scribbled, "I have to be kind to myself. I need to forge a clear path, not just know my destination." In that moment, something began to awaken within her. and understanding that clarity and focus would serve as her guiding principles. Her next online post wouldn't merely be a collection of thoughts, it needed to carry a purpose that resonated beyond her own narrative. Inspired, she crafted a rough outline. The intention would be twofold: share her personal encounters while also providing actionable insights for her readers. This way, she could connect with others, empowering them to explore their own journeys. 3 core themes emerged: acknowledging fears, celebrating small victories, and understanding the strength found in community, even from a distance. Motivated, Grace sought feedback from a few trusted friends. Crafting a group chat, she asked for their thoughts on her outline. Would this direction resonate? It was an invitation for collaboration, an unexpected shift from her previous solitary approach. No, she was no longer solely an individual seeker of validation. She was becoming a collaborator in the journey of healing. As the responses came in, she felt an electric stir of anticipation. Each thoughtful comment layered her own vision with perspectives she hadn't fully explored. Some friends shared similar experiences, opening up vulnerabilities she admired in their honesty. Others offered constructive critiques that made her rethink how she could articulate her message. Each exchange felt like a power surge, breathing life into her aspirations and transforming fear into resolve. Amid the intellectual stimulation, though, an undercurrent of worry persisted. Jenna's earlier words echoed, and that nagging uncertainty returned. Was Grace truly ready for the shift she sought? Would she have the resilience to withstand inevitable pushback or criticism? The weight of expectations began to feel suffocating rather than motivating, and she paused. What if Jenna was right? What if revealing her vision for sharing was just the beginning of something much larger, one that could expose her to more uncertainty and deep-rooted fears? The mere thought sent tremors through her resolve. A sudden determination surged forth as she realized the truth. Growth emerged from discomfort. Life would not guarantee smooth sailing, and yet it was those moments of tension and conflict that could cultivate profound change. With a burst of clarity, she began typing rapidly again. What would I say to my younger self, she pondered aloud. I would tell her that every step into the unknown is a testament to her bravery. As she fervently typed, thoughts about Jenna's question began enveloping her. Could she genuinely embrace the possibility of rejection?
It was time to confront that vulnerability, to summon each ounce of strength buried within her. Grace paused, staring at the blinking cursor. Tomorrow I will reveal my plan for connection through authenticity, she decided, her heart thrumming with purpose. Flipping her journal closed, she felt an unfamiliar thrill coursing through her veins. This was not the end of her transition, but merely the next leap into her evolving narrative. Perhaps this journey would not be solely about her struggles, but also a profound invitation for others alongside her. What awaited on the horizon was both terrifying and exhilarating, and she was prepared to embrace it. Could she summon the courage to step beyond her fears and show the world her true self? The moment of reckoning loomed close, igniting a spark of anticipation. Whether it would empower or challenge her remained an enigma, one she was finally ready to face. The morning sun streamed through the window, illuminating the clutter of Grace's kitchen table, now littered with drafts of her post and half-empty coffee mugs. Each swig of cold coffee entwined with the warmth of her resolve, propelling her further into the whirlwind of ideas swirling in her mind. Today was decisive. Today she would reveal her vision to the world. But as excitement brewed within her, doubts danced just beneath the surface, teasing her sense of purpose. With her laptop open, Grace took a moment to consider her approach. Would her vulnerability resonate? Could her authentic voice break through the barriers she so often felt as an invisible obstacle? She tapped her fingers against the keyboard, her pulse quickening. Every stroke felt like a commitment to something greater, the culmination of risk and the potential for change. With her outline firmly in mind, she focused on the first theme, acknowledging fears. The anxiety she experienced in accepting her own uncertainty would resonate with many. What if she shared the wisdom gleaned from those struggles? The thought strengthened her resolve. She crafted a narrative around her hesitation to step into the spotlight, illuminating it as a universal aspect of the human experience. A few lines turned into a full paragraph, and with each sentence, the rawness of her emotions spilled onto the screen. Yet, as her words formed, another creeping worry bubbled to the forefront. What if this wasn't enough? What if she ultimately fell short? Would the world dismiss her insights, rendering her efforts futile?
Breathing deeply, Grace paused to reflect on the growing turmoil. This wasn't merely about sharing a message, it encapsulated her journey towards self-acceptance. The conversation she initiated in her group chat echoed back. Her friends' encouragement fueled her tenacity. She envisioned each of them reading her post, nodding as they recognized fragments of their own experiences woven into her narrative. This vision crystallized her conviction. Her voice mattered, and so did her story.
Fueled by this renewed perspective, she pressed on, weaving in the second theme, celebrating small victories. This idea resonated with people who often overlooked their triumphs, dismissing them as inconsequential. Grace recalled moments from her past, finishing a tough project, learning a new skill, or even learning to speak without hesitation during team meetings. The happiness from those experiences could spark joy in others. Outlining simple yet profound anecdotes solidified her intention. These moments held the capacity for connection, and the act of sharing them would strengthen that bond. As the words flowed, Grace felt her body contracting with pressure at the thought of her final theme, the strength found in community. Although she had retraced her notes repeatedly, the realization struck her hard. The isolation she often felt was a shared experience. Everyone longed for connection, disregarding the facade of independence that society often praised. Her own struggles in seeking connection mirrored those of countless others, and forging those bonds would serve as a comfort, both for her and her readers. Ivory palms tightened around the edges of her laptop, and for the first time, the cracking surface of fear began to separate. This realization ignited a wave of urgency within her. It was now or never. With a quick move, she reached for her phone, swallowing the lump forming in her throat. "How do we empower ourselves and each other in our journeys?" she typed in the group chat, her fingers dancing across the screen. Excitement coursed through her veins, reminding her of the solidarity embedded in the very act of vulnerability. She could no longer hide behind walls. It was time to dismantle them brick by brick. The notifications lit up with responses, her friends encouraging her with messages that solidified her courage. Grace's thoughts began to collide as new ideas raced through her mind, shedding light on perspectives she had yet to consider. "Do we find strength in collective vulnerability?" she mused aloud, her words spiraling towards an even deeper revelation. The real question formed like a whisper on the wind. How would she confront and embrace the opinions of others, those who wouldn't resonate, or worse, those who would criticize? One certainty blossomed within her. Authenticity was her shield. A flickering candle of determination burned brightly, and she welcomed the notion that every uncomfortable challenge would solidify her growth. As the clock ticked on, she contemplated her imminent confrontation with the public sphere, and wondered how her journey would unfold. Emboldened, Grace took a deep breath, preparing to hit send on her first post. But the thought struck her, a mere click wouldn't mark the end. It was only the beginning of an even larger battle within and beyond. The moment had arrived. Would she be met with open arms, or would the veil of vulnerability expose deeper betrayals of the heart?
Together with her community or alone, the path ahead promised revelations that would test everything she believed in. Grace stood at the crossroads of fear and hope, fully dressed for her journey ahead, feeling more like a pioneer stepping into the unknown than just another woman sharing her struggles. Today marked a critical juncture. She was no longer just a participant of her life, confined by apprehensions and past failures. She intended to become its architect, constructing a narrative forged through raw honesty and transformation. As the hours rolled on, Grace found herself lost in the reverberations of her own words. Her blog post, Embracing Authenticity in the Face of Fear, had blossomed into a tapestry of insights and lessons she had gleaned from her journey. With each keystroke, she celebrated not only her victories, but also her setbacks, a balancing act that allowed her to reclaim her voice. Would it resonate with others? Could she truly inspire someone else to embark on their own journey? "Today we tend to dismiss our fear," she typed, her mind racing back to earlier moments where anxiety had strangled her self-worth. But embracing it can ignite a spark, one that fuels our evolution. Those words dug deeply into her own experiences, solidifying the truth she had fought hard to accept. Vulnerability was a powerful catalyst for connection, not an open invitation to ridicule. After hours of reflection, she pressed publish, exchanging the comforting solitude of her home for the unpredictable exposure to the world beyond her window. Anticipation surged through her body, juxtaposed with the whispers of uncertainty that always seemed to dodge her self-assurance. What awaited her now was beyond her control, yet she finally understood that she owned the courage to present herself as she truly was. She sat back, hoping for a flood of responses, yet bracing herself for criticism. Time crawled like molasses as she awaited that familiar ping from her phone, each second amplifying the surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Then it came. The sound sliced through her silence. Messages poured in, each notification igniting a new layer of exhilaration and apprehension. Grace meticulously navigated her feed, soaking in each comment. Support, camaraderie, and shared experiences unfurled beneath her fingertips, confirming her realization that vulnerability could birth a profound community. "Grace, your story inspired me to open up about my own journey," one comment proclaimed, sending warmth radiating from her heart. The weight of her self-doubt began to lift. These were not just words, they were bridges she'd built to connect with others, forming a network where authenticity flourished. Among the messages flooded insightful questions, and Grace relished the conversation. These exchanges fired up her passion to share even more.
Each person who reached out brought new perspectives, intertwined their struggles with hers, and encouraged her to dig deeper. This communal experience wasn't simply cathartic, it was powerful, a collective surge of courage promising transformative possibilities. Amidst the affirmations, Jenna's text arrived, reassuring Grace that stepping into her vulnerability was courageous. "When we shed our facades, we leave ourselves open for understanding, not judgment," her sister encouraged, fortifying an anchor for Grace's evolving identity. It felt as though an invisible wealth of encouragement encircled her, guiding her through uncharted territory. With newfound purpose, Grace realized her task extended beyond her own journey. It now embraced a guiding role for others. She envisioned not only sharing her experiences, but creating proactive spaces for those longing to be heard. "What if I could host a discussion group?" she pondered, excitement igniting her imagination. A platform embracing vulnerability could circulate the stories of those eager to break free from their chains of isolation. The steps unfolded organically as she planned future posts and crafted outlines that would invite collaboration. Grace felt an empowerment that coursed through her, invigorating her mind with the possibilities that awaited. Days turned into weeks, and every moment spent sharing her story became transformative, not just for her readers, but for herself. She thrived through the rhythm of feedback. This newfound chorus of voices challenged her to confront her fears and chase clarity, reinforcing the idea that growth rarely existed in isolation. With clarity illuminated in her experience, Grace prepared to share her next post, a celebration of community and collaboration. "Together, we can explore and navigate the intricacies of life," she envisioned, recognizing the empowering force in shared stories. Ultimately, though, the greatest triumph was her deepened awareness that life was fundamentally about relationships, with herself and with others. No longer was she ensnared by expectations. Grace emerged with solid confidence, ready to tackle challenges and advocate for authenticity without trepidation. Her journey unfurled with uplifting vigor, a proposal for her upcoming project. A blog series dedicated to showcasing voices within her corner of the world, punctuated by shared reflections and opportunities for discussion, became Grace's passion. Through her own transformation, she had become a beacon of empowerment, anchoring her belief that vulnerability held an unparalleled strength. All the moments, struggles, and redefining choices had coalesced into a foundation she could build upon, yielding the fruits of recognition she had always sought, not through external validation, but from deep within herself.
In this newfound light, she emerged a force, an accomplished individual confident in her journey and ready to inspire others to conquer their personal challenges as she had. By uncovering herself, she had not only transformed her life, but also illuminated pathways for others to follow, rewarding her with a profound sense of fulfillment. This was no longer just Grace's story. It was an invitation for everyone to embrace the beauty that thrives within authenticity. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support by clicking the bell for all notifications, because you don't want to miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more people craving personal transformation. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Comment below your reactions and theories about Grace's triumphant ending. Let's ignite the conversation about overcoming our journeys together.